Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Soul Goals Podcast. I'm Dawn, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. This podcast is dedicated to bringing people's stories to light and hearing their journeys of inspiration and self-growth. But it's also about connection and knowing that you are not alone. Each week, I get the chance to sit down and talk with an amazing soul, someone I've had the blessing of either meeting or following in my life. I am so grateful for my guests. Their openness and their vulnerability, it is unmatched as we share heartfelt conversations together about both their challenges and their triumphs. I hope that you can grab some inspiration and connection from my guests and their stories. I know I certainly have with each conversation. What an honor to sit with these brave souls. Everyone has a story, folks, and every story matters. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Soul Goals. My name is Dawn. So glad you're joining us today. I am so happy to have our guest on the show today, Steve Gillis, hailing just down the road from where I live, actually. Steve is from Middle Tennessee, and I adore this man. I first met him through his daughter, Emily, in the gymnastics world when my daughter was doing gymnastics, because his daughter was one of her primary coaches. And interestingly enough, I think we met when you were first starting out your CrossFit gym and getting all that pulled together.
That's right. Yep, absolutely.
Do you remember us doing CrossFit out of a closet? Like Emily and you and I would pull all the equipment out onto the gymnastics floor because you hadn't built your building yet?
Exactly. Yes. That was about 8 years ago.
Yeah, dude. And it feels like it was yesterday. I think it's probably because I think you age faster after you hit a certain mark in your maturation process. I mean,
we look exactly the same, Dawn. We look exactly the same.
Oh, well, gee, thank you. Actually, you do too, Steve.
Yeah.
You may have an extra hair on your head. You just asked me before we hit the record. For those that can't see this that aren't watching the YouTube, Steve is bald. Like you shave that head, it's gone. And he's like, nope, it's I got two hairs here. Are they looking okay? Perfect. But I asked Steve to come on the show today because I think he has a really important story of courageous recovery that he has gone through. Steve is 31 years sober, and I know his path has been up and down. He has two daughters, a loving wife, great family, and great friends that he's adopted as family as well along the way through his whole process. But I feel like part of our work in this life is to share ourselves with others so that our stories can be relatable. We can be inspirations to other people that may be struggling, hence the idea of sharing your soul's goals and what you've gone through. So without further ado, I am introducing my good friend to the show, Steve Gillis. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Don. My pleasure.
Yes.
Thank
yes. You. All right. Back to those CrossFit things before we jump into anything too deep. Are you still CrossFitting every day?
Absolutely. In fact, I've got two competitions coming up.
Wait a minute.
One the weekend after next, a little local one, and then the next one's a team comp down in Birmingham as part of the Masters CrossFit Games. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So where can we watch that at? Or it'll be actually when we release this. Hopefully, we'll be able to put a picture of you on the podium. When?
Yeah.
2 weeks from now?
Yeah, I'll be on the podium presenting the award. Maybe.
No, I think
Labor Day weekend and is when it is. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So you're definitely super active. When you started the gym, tell me a little bit about how that came to fruition, because I know it wasn't just yourself. It was you and two other individuals that kind of got together and decided, let's create this community.
Right. Well, so I've been in healthcare all my life, and I've also been a teacher all my life. So I started as an EMT when I was 18, and I probably started teaching when I was 16, teaching lifeguarding and then swimming. And then I got my EMT and paramedic, and then I started teaching the National Registry at EMT to the corpsmen down in Orlando, which is where I'm from originally. And then and then I got into nursing and eventually became the nurse educator at the hospital. And so I've taught all my life as well. And so I've also worked out most of my life. I took a 10, 15-year mandatory break to work on the dad bod from the mid 20s to 40, you know. I believe my wife, one day I had my shirt off and she said, "Where's that six pack I married?" And I said, "Now you have the whole kit." Yes, I was shamed into getting back in the gym and haven't quit since. But I was coaching CrossFit at a local gym, and I told the owner he was so gregarious and just made everybody feel like they were special. And of course, it was a lot of teaching in that role, coaching and stuff, and it was linked to healthcare in a way. And I told him, I said, "It's your fault, but I'm going to open a CrossFit gym someday." Well, I'm also a big, I don't know if I can say it, Dave Ramsey fan. Maybe you get some free advertisement there.
Okay,
but,
there you go.
well, I wasn't going to do any kind of loans. It was going to be a cash flow business. I wasn't going to start off in debt. And so it was realistically looking at 3 or 4 years out. And a couple of people there at the gym approached me and said, "How soon are you going to open your gym?" And because they wanted to be a part of ownership of a gym, and that wasn't available where they were. And so I said, well, probably 3 or 4 years. They said, "Well, what if you had some partners or investors?" So we went out to lunch, found out we had very similar ideas of vision of what we wanted to create and stuff. And all three of us had corporate jobs with benefits and no small business experience. So we knew we weren't going to make a lot splitting it 3 ways, but it also mitigated a lot of the risk. So with three of us, nobody's going to get hurt too bad if we screw it up. And so we dove in and pooled our funds and opened it. And one of the owners has since moved on, but there's 2 of us left. And we now have the biggest CrossFit gym in Wilson County. And it's been very successful, coming up, just finishing up our 7th year of being open. And it's been a real blessing. We kind of have every CrossFit gym is independently owned and has its own flavor and feel. So I tell people, if they come in and don't like ours, go to another one. You know, absolutely. From and vice versa. Try us all. And our kind of model, if you will, is longevity, health, not getting hurt. We're not trying to get the fittest and the strongest, the fastest. Most of our clientele's moms and dads trying to stay healthy and keep up with kids and grandkids. And so that's kind of the model we follow.
Right. Absolutely. Which is great because, and I love that you say too, that if it doesn't fit for us, then I want you to find what fits for you.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously we'd love to have plenty of business, but I know the owners of the other CrossFit gyms in the area, and I have no hesitation to recommend any of them. They're all great people. But like I say, every one of them is slightly different. So,
you just got to find your way for sure.
Right. Exactly.
So I knew that you were in healthcare, but I did not realize you started out as an EMT when you were 18, Steve.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. What prompted you to go that direction? What was the drive in you to say, I want to do this? Because I was actually talking to my kids about this the other day, and my older daughter, who will be a senior in college, was saying one of her girlfriends is going to nursing school, and she's really heavily into it right now. And she says, I just couldn't be a nurse. And I'm like, dude, I all due respect, there's no way that I could do that.
I'll have to tell on myself a little bit, but I'll be honest. So I graduated high school at 17. And I went off to school on mom and dad's money up to Florida State and went to very few classes. At the time, you only had to be 18 to drink. And so it was assumed if you were in college, you were old enough. And that started part of what I'll talk about, but that started that party atmosphere, really kicked it in gear. And somehow I didn't make great grades following that study model.
For sure.
And Dad invited me to come home and try junior college. And so while I was doing that, at that time I could take the EMT program was 2 nights a week. I was always attracted to healthcare. I went away to school pre-med, but you have to actually go to class to do that. So
point.
I came home and did the EMT route. My mom was a nursing instructor, and there was a hospital she worked at that owned an ambulance service.
Mhm.
And uh, I was able to get on there after my 6 month class of 2 nights a week and started that, and then took off from there. But really enjoyed it, and it was a
Yeah.
great environment to be in. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you found a way to make lemonade out of lemons, if you
Yeah.
will.
I went to 10 years of junior college and got my AS degree in
Wait,
paramedic science. No,
wait, wait.
just let that go, Don. Let it go.
I went to 10 years. I got you. Hey, actually, if I added it back, let's see, how long did it take me to get my bachelor's of science? It took me 24 years to get my bachelor's of
Yeah.
science. Yeah. Yeah.
I went, let's see, I was, I think I got married at around 26 years of age.
Mhm.
And I went back to nursing school so I was probably 27 when I said, okay, I need to make a little bit more money than I'm making now. And so I went to nursing school. And so I entered nursing school with an AS degree, not an AA. So that leaves you a little short. And then,
Yeah.
but I got my bachelor's in 2 years, paying for it myself, and somehow got a 4.0 average. It's amazing how much more focused I was going back with
Right.
a true profession and some responsibility needs behind it than going off as a teenage kid,
Yeah.
excited to.
Well, you knew kind of what you were headed towards, and you had a glimpse. And it's almost like some kids that will say, I really just don't know what I want to do out of high school. And then we're expecting them to know immediately when they're, first of all, 17, 18 years old, make those huge life decisions of this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, when I don't know that they know what they want to wear the next day. You
Right,
know?
exactly. And that's probably my counsel to younger friends I have starting off is, look, your
Yeah.
kid's going to change their major 2 or 3 times. And also try to tell people that what you think you're going to school for the rest of your life, it's not a marriage, and
Right.
it can change and often will. But getting that college degree can get you in the door of a lot of corporations. Just having a degree, they don't even care what it's in, just have a degree.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I could not agree with you more. And 100%, 100%. Tell me a little bit about how things started down a road for you with your alcohol addiction and where
Yeah.
that started kind of gaining traction. Because I know you said when you were at Florida State, that's kind of where that it started picking up for you. But then I would look at it as like, okay, that's what a lot of college students do. What
Right.
do you think was the precipitous for you to go that direction?
So I don't have a tragic story that led me to addiction. I
Mhm.
grew up in a nice middle class family, 2 parents, stable environment. Um, we didn't have a lot extra money, but we
Mhm.
had clothes and food and were able to do activities. I did Boy Scouts and Indian guides and all the things you're supposed to do that lead you the right way, and
Yeah.
had good moral family and stuff.
Mhm.
Looking back, I probably would say I got my self worth from others. I
Okay.
didn't really have a sense of self. I didn't have a low self esteem. I just didn't have a self esteem. My self esteem came from what others thought of me. So I became a chameleon, and I could fit in any group. The
Mhm.
cool kids, the band kids, the athletic kids. It didn't matter because I could bend and be whatever they wanted me to be,
Yeah.
uh, and I didn't need to be in charge. I had a good sense of humor,
Mhm.
so um, I was that way, and so I got with a group as well that liked to party, and so it started in high school. Actually, I think, to be honest, in Boy Scouts, I think it's the first place I
Mhm.
smoked a joint,
Yeah.
and we would drink a little bit, and it didn't start off buying anything. It was kind of, if somebody had something, you partake of it,
Yeah.
and in the beginning, it was fun and it was social, and it was experimentation. So
Mhm.
that, I try to tell my kids when they grew up, I said, look, you're going to get opportunity, and nobody knows who's going to be an addict and who's not, and
Right.
certainly nobody's goal. I
Right.
also was naive enough as it progressed and I got into medicine, to think that I would see telltale signs and nip it in the bud, but of course the person we lie to the most and in denial the most is ourselves. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea long before other people were starting to see signs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the denial and all. So it started off social. I went to Florida State. We drank a lot. I actually didn't do other drugs at Florida State. And then when I came home and I started working on the ambulance, probably my friends that I associated with probably smoked some pot.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody had some kind of pills or something, we might partake of them, but it wasn't a staple that we have on a regular basis. But I was open to trying about anything. I always had little barriers. I'll smoke pot, but I'll never buy it. I'll pill, but I'll never do cocaine, or I'll try it this way, but I'll never inject a needle, and all these little things I wouldn't do that slowly fell one at a time over the years. It was a slow process. Eventually, I would say the beginning of the end, when it started to get out of control, I was probably early 20s, paramedic, and there was a group of emergency physicians that we partied with, and I would really look up to and want to impress. Remember, I'm getting myself worth from others, and here's a group of physicians that like me, so I must be really good. And I remember eventually being introduced to cocaine, which was very much a binge drug.
Right.
You'd spend a lot of money on it, not be able to put it away until you basically fell asleep, or crashed and burned or ran out of money and they wouldn't front you anymore. But then you could stay away from it for a little while. And so that was part of the denial is, I don't have to do it regularly. An addict does it all the time. My drink would go like a sine wave. If I had access to other drugs, my drinking would go way down. And if I didn't, my drinking would go way up.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm old. So this is all before there was MAD. If you stopped drinking and you hadn't done any property damage or had a wreck, there was a good chance the cops would call your parents or give you a ride home, those days. So it was a little different. And then eventually I got introduced to a needle. Now, we had pharmaceutical drugs and clean, sterile needles and syringes. And I remember I was scared to death. I almost threw up my first time. But it made me feel, and that was the lie, but it made me feel so comfortable. I found a drug that let me function. I wasn't, you and I could be having this conversation just fine. I mean, I could function fine, but I had no anxiety, no fear, just calm and comfortable.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, after using it, there was no hangover, no Jones like you got when you stopped using cocaine or something like that. And so it was the perfect thing. I look back now that I have a spiritual side and I say, wow, what a tool of the devil, to just suck people in.
Right.
I also, and we get into my recovery more later, but my view is, and this is mine, I'm not saying it has to be anybody else's, but my view is there's just one disease, and that's addiction.
Right.
The substance could be anything. It could be alcohol or other legal drugs. It could be illegal drugs. It could be gambling, sex. When you have a cold, some people have a runny nose. Some people have stuffed up ears. Some people have achiness. Well, the achiness or the stuffy nose is not the disease. It's a symptom of the disease. Some people all the above. So I'll hear a term, somebody will say, I'm cross addicted. I'll roll my eyes. I'm like,
wow.
I'm addicted.
It's addiction. Yeah.
And so in the beginning, my thought was, you're addicted to something. Just remove that drug. So I spent a lot of wasted time getting rid of the thing I thought I was addicted to, only to replace it with
With
something else.
something else. Yeah.
I was addicted to feeling different. That's what I was addicted to. And
Yeah.
and so, um, if I could offer anything to anybody, would be, don't waste years of your life thinking that it's this substance, and if I can remove it, everything will be all better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, because I do think that that is the lie that happens with a lot of addictions, especially early on when you realize, hey, there's something going on here. And I know that, like the lie you're telling yourself, I can
Yeah.
stop this anytime I want to. And I'm not doing it every day.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I'm okay. But the lie is that you can replace it with something else and
Right.
have the same conversation in your head about
Sure.
that.
Right.
So it's
And
the behavior.
and now at this point, I'm a nurse in the Navy, so I'm clean cut. I'm wearing a nice uniform. My bills are paid. I've got a job. I'm making good money. When I think of a drug addict, I think of somebody on the street, unkept. That's a drug addict, right? Somebody can't hold a job, can't pay their bills. So I was just a functional drug addict.
Yes.
Yeah.
High functioning addiction.
Yeah.
Which I think if we look at the grand scope of things, I think there's so much of that going on in our
Right.
day and age.
Well,
And
and the sad thing about it is it allows you to stay sick for a long time, right?
yeah,
If you crash and burn quickly, it's kind of hard to deny.
right.
But it just helps that denial and that rationalization.
Yeah. And the longer you stay sick and in denial, the more you miss of that present moment stuff. Like right now, look at 31 years recovered for you
Yeah.
with a wonderful wife, two beautiful daughters, a granddaughter now as well.
Yep.
I just, yeah.
So blessed, so undeserved too, and I don't lose sight of that. So blessed.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about when you met your wife and where she came into all of this play, because I know that recovery had to happen when you were in that relationship.
Yeah. So good point. So my wife, Dottie, she grew up in the same time frame. So
Mhm.
she was somebody that probably did a lot of the teenage stuff that I did.
Right.
But then she got married and got pregnant, and grew up and cut all that stuff out because it was the right thing to do. So there's no addiction there, right? She was the experimenter, the social person that when it was time to grow up, grew up.
Okay.
And so when we met, my son Ryan was 3 years old. My stepson, technically, so her son. And her first husband, shortly after they married, had manifested with schizophrenia, and he soon became a dangerous situation. He's since passed, but he spent most of his life either institutionalized or living with his parents. But he was very, very mentally ill.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, they ended up parting ways. Part of it was for safety.
Right.
And so we met, and she was a lab tech at the hospital, and I was a paramedic. And she had no idea that I was 5 years younger than her. She was cougar before cougar was. And so she had no idea till it was too late,
Well, hey, pause for a second, because I would say that I thought she was the younger one of the couple.
Well, she will love you for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not lying about that.
Right.
But okay.
Yeah. So
that's how you met.
We dated for about 5 years. Now, during that time, my addiction was growing and growing, and was what I was very good at it, hiding. She had no idea.
Oh, wow.
So part of the reason, she knew I drank too much, but she didn't know any of the other stuff.
Wow.
And so part of the reason I kept putting off asking her to marry me is I wanted to quit doing this stuff. I wanted to be I always wanted to be a dad and a good husband, and the things I was doing didn't lend itself to that. And so I'm keep telling myself, this is it, I'm done, and then of course it'd be right back at it.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of got the ultimatum, hey, if this is not the route we're going, fine, but I need to move. So we engaged soon after, and we got married, and then I went in the Navy, and so, we were in Orlando. Our first duty station was Jacksonville, and then it was getting pretty bad. We had Kaylee was 3 and Emily was just born, which makes my son 13 at the time.
Yeah.
And Desert Storm broke out. The first Desert Storm, for anybody watching this that's too young, this is about 1990 time frame.
Yeah.
And so I got deployed with the Marines out in Desert Storm, out in the desert. And we set up a field hospital. And I was in charge, because most of them are corpsmen and stuff. And I was in charge of this 144 bed hospital and surgical unit and stuff from the nursing side of things.
Okay.
Had unlimited access to the narcotics that I craved. So when the war ended, I was the one guy that was probably going, no.
Yeah.
It's right. So I came home and I had 2 weeks off before I had to go back to the hospital. So I shaked and baked. I was dope sick. I, was just sick on the couch. And I remember Dottie clearly saying, maybe you caught some disease over there. And me thinking to myself, oh, I got a disease, but it's
been ongoing for many years. Yeah.
So I went back to work, and every single day, now at the time too, I need to say, I was at best an agnostic, worst an atheist. I did not believe, didn't go to church, didn't pray, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. And so I went back, and every night for the next year was the last night I was going to use. I pretty much cleaned up all the using to just the pharmaceuticals I got at work, no more street drugs and alcohol. And of course, that was part of the rationalization that it's okay. In my mind, I'm thinking this probably cost the Navy 50 cents, and the patients were still getting their medication. I was getting mine. I developed quite a little system that worked out. And so I, thought it was great, but I knew it had to end. And I knew I was creating a paper trail that was eventually going to get me caught.
Absolutely.
So that was a terrible time of life. And every night I would quit with full sincerity and just willpower. And every day, the next day, I'd be high. And so I remember sitting on a commode with a needle in my arm at work. And my dad had passed away about 9 months before. And I remember throwing up a prayer, and I said, God, man, I don't know if you exist. I feel like such a hypocrite, but I need help. And I said, and Dad, if you got any pull, and I know that might mean getting caught, but I can't go on like this. And so I was ready, full of fear, what's going to happen to family. But I knew what was going to happen if it didn't change, because it was just this hamster wheel. And so it was just a terrible time of life. So what happened was I had, without getting too specific, I was taking home boxes of morphine. And the pharmacy was going to eventually be looking for the sheets that go along with this. Right. I happened to be on duty the night that the pharmacy came up looking. I was the charge nurse. And I said, okay, I'll look into this and get back with you in the morning. It was a night shift. My boss came in the morning, commander, and I went into him and spilled my guts. And I said, the gig is up. This is it. And he looked at me and said, this is the first I've heard of that. I said, well, I know this first you're hearing of it, but I'm telling you, the pharmacy's been here. They're looking for it. He said, no, this is the first I've heard of it. So just remember that, because that's going to come back in a second.
Okay.
So I was sent home. I had to see they didn't have a drug counselor. They had an alcohol counselor, which alcohol's a drug. Don't get me wrong, but
it's different. It's a different protocol at that point.
So he told me about Narcotics Anonymous, a 12-step program, and suggested I look into that. So I remember going. I think this all went down on a Sunday, and Thursday was the first meeting I went to, and I was committed in my mind that I was going to do what they said. And I remember going in there, listening to the readings, and it was, complete abstinence from all drugs, including alcohol. So that was actually my last drink. That was in July of 91. And that's like a gift, because I probably would have kept drinking had it not been part of it. So that was a gift give that up. What a lot of money that saved.
Right.
But anyways, I had to go home and tell Dottie, right?
Mm.
Now, uh, that was tough. Well, Dottie's already been through this relationship where the guy, seemingly normal becomes a schizophrenic. Now here's another guy, seemingly her knight in shining armor, that's now deeply flawed and been living this lie for how long, right?
Right.
So she was not, it'll be okay, we'll get through this. She was, I don't know if I can do this. And
Right.
so,
Understandably.
yeah, yeah. So every day I'd go to work because I had to continue. I'm still in the Navy, right? I have to go back to work. I'm an officer, so I have to resign my commission, which took 7 months. So they moved me to education away from the drugs, but I'm a dirtbag at work, right? So everybody's looking up their nose, down their nose at me.
Wow.
I go home, I'm opening the door, wondering if Dottie and the kids still live there.
Yeah.
But I went to that Narcotics Anonymous thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, these idiots give me a hug and smile and are glad to see me when I get there, right? So that invited me so much that was my safe spot. I had 2 safe spots. That was my place. And at lunchtime, I would go work out and run. And I would run so hard that I couldn't breathe. And during the time that I was running and couldn't breathe, I couldn't think about everything that was going on, right?
Yeah.
So those are my 2 few-minute reprieves. I seriously considered 3 options.
Mm-hmm.
I could swallow the barrel of my gun, end it all. But Kaylee's now 4, Emily's 1, Ryan's 14. I'm like, I can't leave my kids with that legacy. I just can't do it. Another thought was I can empty the bank accounts and take off and run. But when the money runs out, I'm probably dead. Mm-hmm. And again, I've deserted my kids, right? And I, from a very young age, wanted to be a dad, wanted to be a good dad. And so the last choice was, and at this time I have a subpoena that says the United States of America versus, this is what we call a moment of clarity. Remember, I'm thinking 50 cents an ampule at its cost to the Navy. United States of America versus Steve Gillis for the theft of narcotics from the federal government. Wow, like that. That sounds bad. And so I'm pretty sure I'm going to prison. So the thought of my kids visiting me in prison is not very entertaining as well. But I knew the only way I could rewrite the legacy was to face the consequences and see it through. The only way I could change the ending of the script. Otherwise, if I die or run away, that's the way the story ends.
Right.
But I sure wasn't looking forward to the next period of time. I also had read through the 12 steps, and in the 3rd step, there's, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So I'm already thinking, oh, this isn't going to work for me. I don't believe in God, and scared of that. And so all of that's just a lot of fear going in. Yeah. And so that's basically led me to day 1 of recovery. But that's kind of my path. You asked me about my path. It was slow. It was a process. And by the time I realized what was going on, it was too late.
Yeah. It sounds torturous, actually, Steve.
Oh, horrible. It starts fun and social, and eventually it's just trying not to die. And once you get to that point, how do I stop?
Right. I think that's the thing with people that go through addictions is that they feel so helpless to that friend. It's not a friend.
Right.
And it's like you said earlier, it's a lie, that we're feeding ourselves. Sure. But that whole stepping off of it is so hard to do, and it takes so much courage.
Well, also trying to save your ass and your face at the same time. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm seeing commercials on TV for treatment centers. Now I could tell Dottie I'm being sent to temporary duty somewhere for a couple months, and I've got a lot of vacation time saved up on the Navy. I could take a leave. enroll in this training. Of course, at the time, again, I have no concept of addiction. I'm thinking
Right.
if I go to a treatment center for 28 days or whatever they are, I come out cured. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right. You're all better. You haven't
Right.
used in a month because, all I'm thinking of is addiction is a physical thing. And
Hmm.
once you remove it and are away from it long enough, it's over. Of
Yeah.
course, that's not the case. 31,
No, no.
31 years later, we're still treating it and trying to get better.
Yeah. It's multifaceted. It
Oh,
expands on it's every part of your being is
yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
Oh,
There's,
yeah.
if only you could go to treatment for a month and come
That's
out and be cured, if
right.
only.
But
Mhm.
it's a good place to start. It was a good place
Mhm.
to start, and it was funny because for me, I got to go to the VA for treatment. It's fun. Some of the things in my recovery are way too easy. People people get resentful, but I was actually 7 months clean. I use the term clean, but
Mhm.
sober is a very common term.
Yeah.
But I was clean for 7 months before I went to treatment. Most people are clean for a few hours, before they go to
Right.
treatment. So I got to go to treatment. So my mind was a little clearer and I could actually absorb quite a bit. That was nice. I was getting paid. That was my last duty in the Navy. And so as I was getting processed out, so I was still getting paid and actually in the Navy during treatment. And
Mhm.
then when I got out, I got a job at a local hospital, which is where my home group of my 12-step program met. I worked 3 to 11. So I'd take my lunch break at 7 p.m. and go down to the meeting.
Go to
So I'm
meeting.
go to my meeting as well. I'm like, this
Yeah.
recovery stuff's not so hard, not so bad.
Well, I think too, it's a testament to the fact that there's a reason why
Yeah,
it's falling into line for
yeah.
you, and
And
you said high functioning a while back. I mean,
right,
high functioning is great until it's exhausting.
yes. And so the way it ended up playing, because we kind of ended there at the subpoena and stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
I got subpoenaed or I got called in by Naval Investigative Services. So NCIS, before it was a TV show,
Yes.
I got called in. And so I stopped by the JAG office and they said, we can't represent you. This lawyer said, I can't represent you till you've been charged, but I can give you some advice. He said that Naval Investigative Services is a criminal investigative service. So they're only looking at it from a criminal end because I'm wanting to clean up the mess. I'm wanting, pour my soul out and let them know that, yes, this is me and blah, 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 blah. But I
Yeah.
also don't want to go to jail. And I know I need to go out and find a job and, support my family and all. I don't know what's going to happen with my nursing license and things like
Right.
that. So, so I'm, trying to be somewhat protective, but at the same time, be open and honest and get this cleared up. So the attorney advised me just to go in and basically plead the fifth, to basically say on advice of counsel, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. So
Right.
they called me in, I went in, I said that, and they said, will that be your answer for every question? I said, yes. And so the
Yes.
interview ended. Turns out later, few weeks, month later, I get a call from the JAG office. And she said, you need to come in here. I found something you're going to want to see. And so I went in, and in the Code of Military Justice, it said if you self-refer, they cannot prosecute you and, in fact, have to offer you treatment. Well, remember that commander said twice, this is the first I've heard of it.
Right.
So that was my first true God thing, the way it unfolded, the way I had to be the charge nurse that the pharmacy came up to for it to appear that I self-referred. I didn't really self-refer. I mean, to be honest, I was still fighting it, right? And but when they came up and I knew the gig was up, that's when I, told them. And so it played out that I self-referred, and I remembered clearly and instantly back to that moment of prayer I had in that bathroom. And I said, I knew it. I even said in the prayer, I know it might mean getting caught.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
did. I got caught, but I got caught in such a way that not only could they not prosecute me, they had to send me to treatment. So,
You were getting a gift.
oh, I get goosebumps still.
I have goosebumps right now.
Yeah. I was just like, there's no other way that could have played out. And
No.
you'll never convince me that that was a coincidence.
Yeah. I mean, so at that point, were you going, this is undeniable, and now I know what I have to work towards and what I have waiting for me?
Probably not so clear at that point.
Okay.
About 3 months into my recovery, so 7 months before I went to treatment, right? So 3 months into going to the 12-step meeting, I finally got the courage to ask a guy to sponsor me. And so,
Okay.
over the years of going to 12-step meetings now, one of the um, one of the roadblocks, or one of the things I see that I wish people would realize is it's a 12-step program. There's 12 steps to work.
Mhm.
And, people are, like I mentioned, people hug you, they're happy to see you. So that's enough for some people. And they just want to come to meetings and, talk, and life gets better because they're not using. So, but
Yeah.
there's no change occurring internally, right?
Right.
It takes those steps to do that. Um, so it's time for me to buckle down and start working these steps. And so there was of all things, a Jewish person, which I think, another Jew, I like Jesus as a Jew, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's this Jewish guy. They told me to find a sponsor that had what I wanted. He's
Mhm.
married, he's got a good job, he's educated and stuff. I thought, well, that's, at this point in time, that's what I want.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for. And so I remember asking him to sponsor me, and I'm talking 90 miles an hour, and I'm like, I want to work steps, but I don't believe in God, and blah, 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 blah. And he said, well, what step are you on? I said, step 1. And he said, is the word God in that step? No. He said, well, can we start there and just see what happens? And
Right.
so, yeah, it was. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess so. And
Yeah.
he said, why don't you pray? You don't have to define what it is you're praying to. Um, just pray to anything. If it's just going out into the air, who cares? What's it costing you? And
Yeah.
just start praying. And so I started from there, so again, it was baby steps, and
Mhm.
we worked through the steps. And then at 7 months, I got to go to the VA for treatment. Well, one of the things we would do is, the guys on the treatment wing, is we would go get some of the older veterans and take them to bingo and to different things in their wheelchairs. We'd wheel them
Right.
around and stuff. And there was a Catholic priest there doing a seminar on spirituality. He never mentioned Jesus, never mentioned God. He just talked about spiritual principles and spirituality and what that was. One of my Navy friends gave me a book called The Road Less Traveled by M.
Yes.
Scott Peck. And
Love
it's,
that book.
yeah, very non-religious but
Mhm.
spiritual book. And so those opened my mind to it let me get away from the rebellion of, no religion, no, this has been forced down my throat, and
Right. It's almost like that dogmatic stuff that we
yeah,
get when we're younger, that we don't really understand, and that
yes.
we can get resentful over. Yeah.
It's so funny because I look back now and I picture God with a fishing pole, and all this is bait, and he's about to set the hook. He's
Mm.
just, I'm
Yeah.
nibbling,
Mm.
and he's just like being patient, but like, this is an end around. It's like, yes, I know some of you aren't going to get it from the beginning. And,
Right.
I got a plan for you.
Mhm. I think that's so hard, though, for so many of us to
Mm,
go to that point of being patient,
yeah,
understanding that we have to go through this process for us to understand the bigger picture for what our life can be,
yeah,
and the work that we have to put in to meet God
right.
where we need to meet him.
The first step says, I was powerless over my addiction. Our lives have become unmanageable. I had checked that box long before I was introduced to recovery. I knew, you knew that. You got subpoena the United States of America against you. Your
It's a
wife
big
is,
deal.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty unmanageable. And I knew I was powerless because I had quit every night for well over a year and was
Yeah.
still using. Um, 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You're approaching that God thing, getting me a little nervous, but you know what? Those drugs were a power much greater than myself. And that
Yeah.
was, so I was like, well, I've been living under a power greater than myself. It's just a negative power, right? And
Okay.
which today I'll call Satan, but at the time, was just, here's a power far greater than me telling me when to get up, when to steal, when to lie.
Yeah.
I'm just boom, 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 boom. Just, I was a puppet. And
Yeah.
why couldn't there be a positive power? You know, why
Good point.
couldn't there better be a positive power? So
Mhm.
as time progresses, I quit every day for a year unsuccessfully. When I reached a year and got my year medallion, I'm like, I'm still the same person. I didn't have that power before. It's not like I was put in a bubble and didn't have access. I could have gone off and got it, I mean, so where did that power come from? It didn't come from me, right? It
Right.
didn't, so where did that power come from? So those kind of things started knocking down my walls. So it
Yeah.
wasn't an aha moment. It was again a process, just like getting addicted was. So was getting, moving along in recovery very much.
Yeah. I would argue though that one of your aha moments was when the officer called you in and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is something that I found," and it was like, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I think the thing that you're referring to, if I hear you right, is that it took a long period of time after that for you to
Right.
actually get to that point of understanding what that power meant for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so my first 5 years of recovery were in Florida, and then we moved to Tennessee.
Yeah.
So my first 5 years of recovery, I worked at a hospital where everybody knew I was in recovery. Um,
Okay.
I was in a nursing program where I couldn't have the narcotic keys and had to have random urinalysis for the first 3 years.
Yeah.
When I graduated that, I was very scared because I said, now I don't have to go to meetings, to maintain
Mhm.
a license. Have I been doing this for me, or have I been doing this,
Yeah.
yeah, to just jump through the hoops and do what you're supposed to do?
Right. Right. What does it really mean for me at this
Now it's
point?
been 27, 28 years since then, and I'm still going to meetings. So I'm starting to believe it's probably for me,
I
that I'm doing
didn't
it.
mean to chuckle, but that's a great point.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's pretty
No, I'm
meaningful,
foolish
guys.
if it's not to. Yeah, it's worked for this long. Why screw it up? Why take a chance?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so, um, anyways, kind of forget where I was going with that, but so the 5 years. So then when I moved to Nashville, this is the first place that I've lived where people don't know me as Steve the Addict, right?
Right.
They can get to know me as Steve first, and then if I choose to let them in on that, then it's, and by the way, or whatever. So and I went from dirtbag to then, and this is not something I had hoped for or even thought about, but it makes sense, is when there's trouble in the family or a close friend has a kid or something, in trouble. Now I'm the resource. Now I'm
Mhm.
the strength. I've experienced strength and hope in that area, and hope that, hey, my kid, my spouse might come out the other side. And how do you get started and where do you go? So it actually turned into a ministry, if you will,
Yeah.
instead of this horrible thing.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody gets to experience that side of it. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the gifts. That's not the biggest gift, but so then 5 years I move up here and I'm traveling for work. And so I'm
Yeah.
gone Monday through Friday. Dottie's up here, doesn't know anybody. The kids are going to school. And so on the weekend, I'm trying to spend as much time as I can with them.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to church up to this point. Never
Oh,
been.
okay. Okay. Okay.
So 5 years in now, I, on my religious journey, not spiritual, on my religious journey, I tried a little Buddhism.
Mhm.
I tried some different routes. I
Mhm.
created my own religion that took pieces of others, and that somebody pointed out that might be kind of disrespectful to
Okay.
the religion. Like, I like mine,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so who's
Okay.
being God in that situation, Steve?
Sure.
So
Sure.
uh,
Understand.
yeah, there's a God, but you're not him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started thinking I should live by example. If I think my kids should be raised in the church, I probably had my butt in there as well. So
Yeah.
my wife was Catholic. The kids are being raised Catholic. Her dad was a deacon in the Catholic Church. I was raised Episcopalian, which is very close.
Mhm.
And so I started going to church. I remember the first homily, first sermon I heard, the priest used a lot of lingo and kind of talked. And I thought, he's got to be in recovery. That's the same stuff we talk about. Not
Yeah.
realizing these 12-step programs came directly out of Christianity.
That's so funny,
Yeah,
Steve.
exactly. I'm thinking they must, be in, rather than what we're doing is, and that's when I first noticed the end around God had done, I
Mhm.
really believe that those 12-step programs are a gift from God, and for
Absolutely.
those of us that are too rebellious, to go a traditional route. And so I started going to that. I also started going to a non-denominational church. My brother-in-law ended up here. He same problem. And
Okay.
so I was taking him to meetings, and we started going to a non-denominational church, got very drawn into the entertainment. The band was awesome. The preacher was funny.
Yeah.
And so I would go to that. And then it had just enough time to get to the Catholic church with Dottie. So I would make the joke that, yeah, I'm in temple on Friday or Saturday, and then I'm at church. So I'm covering all the bases.
You're doing everything. Yes.
And so, um, that started to create a little strain with Dottie. Like Sunday was our day to have
Yeah.
sip coffee and all, and now that's been cut out because I'm going to this other church. Eventually, I went to the RCIA classes and became Catholic, and just fell madly in love with the religion. I know
Yeah.
there'll probably be some recovering Catholics on here that fell out of love with the Catholic religion from their experiences and their other. And that, I mean, whatever your walk is, please don't think that I'm like, there's only one path.
Well,
I think
and
all different denominations and the bickering you see on Facebook and stuff
mhm.
is Satan at work, and he's just loving it. He's like, I didn't have to create this, and they're fighting with each other.
It's a huge, it's a
Yeah,
huge division. But I'll go back to the first thing you said, even, and I'm going to make it super simplistic, even about
yeah,
CrossFit. Like if you don't like this CrossFit gym, it does
yeah,
not fit with you, then
right,
you find the avenue, you find the road that resonates with you, that speaks to you.
yeah,
And I think that's the premise that
sure,
Christianity falls under for a lot of people, that I really, I like that fact that if this doesn't work, I can find something else that resonates and that
right,
speaks to me for what it is that I need. And I can still be a productive member of my household and
right,
my work life, my
yeah,
family in general.
sure. And so once I've developed that, one of the beauties of owning your own small business in this country is you can express your faith through your business. And
Yeah.
so, again, I express my Christianity through the business, not my Catholicism. And so we host once a month Faith RX, which I think you're familiar with, and which
Yes.
is a bridge between faith and fitness. And so you come in, you don't have to be a member at any gym, you don't have to be a member at any church. You just come in, we do a little group workout that you can participate in or not. And then we have a devotional and sharing. We sit around on the floor, and those that want to share like some canned questions and
Mhm.
to stimulate conversation, and those that want to share do. And it's just so wonderful. So you get
Agreed. Yeah.
different denominations and even different fitness path and so
Right.
forth. Yeah,
Yeah, I've been a part of this Faith RX
sure.
before, and I will just tell anybody that's listening, if you, I mean, that is such a lovingly belonging place.
Yeah,
And it just covers, for me, it covers all the grounds. It covers the physicality, it covers the spirituality, obviously, but it also has an emotional and mental component to it as
yeah,
well. You're meeting with community that is
exactly.
all supportive and there and they're in your box. You know what I
Yep.
mean? They're right there with you.
I look at people like we are three-legged bar stools, or tripods might be more appropriate to say now. But we're mental, physical, and spiritual beings, and
Yeah.
any one of those gets out of balance, we tip over. And
Yeah.
so I encourage. There's plenty of people that come to CrossFit that are non-religious.
Right.
And I just encourage people to equal amounts of time. Read a book, listen to a podcast, something educational, and
Yeah.
do some fitness and do something spiritual, whatever it is. Get out and serve. I mean, I don't care if you don't go religious. Go service. Go do service work.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Get out of yourself.
Yes. So many things, so many outlets that you can participate in.
Sure.
I'm really interested to, I want to tell you, I just feel like you started out by saying, I didn't really have anything traumatic happen, no major life thing that got me into this, but I want to tell you how courageous you have been to, first of all, I know that's going to sound silly, but, and maybe not, you'll understand where I'm coming from. To live in that body for as long as you did was
Oh,
so incredibly challenging and difficult to do. But to come out of living in that bind for so long and own up to your stuff and
yeah,
say, I am powerless, and get to that place of being courageous in the light of fear. So
yeah.
much fear.
I I agree with you. It takes a lot of courage to face the next day, knowing what it's going to be, that Groundhog Day. That
Right.
took a lot of courage. The other, I think, takes more humility.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah.
I think it's I am broken, and I've come to learn that everybody's broken in some way, shape, or form. Hence
Mhm.
your podcast, right? Everybody has something, I mean, it may not be addiction, maybe something else, but
Right.
I think we're perfectly broken. I think we're
Yeah.
made broken on purpose so that we need a perfect thing to make us whole. And
Mm.
looking back on it, and mine happened to be addiction, and now I have a strength to help other people, and all that I didn't have before. And somebody else may be overcoming a disease, a cancer or
Mhm.
something like that. Somebody else is maybe overcoming poverty, or oppression, or political persecution, or what. But that classic saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," um,
Mhm.
is absolutely true. Some of the
Yeah.
strongest people I know have come through the roughest lives, and a lot of it's self-inflicted.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it does take a huge amount, you're so right, of humility to get to that point, to really recognize and honor that point, that part, and go, "Ugh, I have
Yes,
to do something about
yeah,
this."
yeah. I need help.
Yeah.
And at first I thought it was human help, and it was to get started.
Yeah. That's
And
the
all the
part.
things help, the your analysis, the people, the community, but ultimately the inside change came from working the 12 steps,
Yeah.
and being open and working them over and over and over again. And then finally, it eventually quit being about me, and became about other people. I mean, the problems I have, 31 years down the road, don't involve police and divorce and naval investigative services
Mhm.
and losing your job, and that, so the problems I have are so small. Um, and that's why it's so important for me to go to meetings and give back.
Yeah.
The newcomer does a far better job of keeping me clean than somebody with 30 years does keeping a newcomer clean, right? The
Yeah.
newcomer wants to hear from that person that's got 30 days clean, because that's the goal at that point.
Right.
How do I go a month? I remember when I got my first 30-day chip, I remember telling Dottie, it's the first time in my adult life I've been 30 days without any kind of mood or mind altering substance in my body. I felt like there should be a parade. She didn't quite see it that way, because remember, it had been a lie for,
Right, right.
you know, and I also learned a lesson that I don't get to dictate the people that I've damaged in this. I don't get to dictate how quickly they get well.
Oh,
It is
great
a
point.
family disease,
Yeah.
and realizing I'm not in control of how quickly they get better, and
Yeah.
allowing them their pain and their troubles that come from it. That's another lesson in humility, and difficult. Um,
How hard was that for you to work through and to be to sit in?
it was hard, but I came from a family that you married for life.
Mhm.
And so when I said I do, I can remember Dottie saying, I give us 5 years, and at the time there was no issues, right? I mean, this is
Right.
just when we're getting married. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if you're going into it that way, this might not be a good idea. And
Yeah.
she's been the pessimist. She answers the phone. What's wrong? You know, I think she's come by it honestly. She's had some big blows that weren't her
Sure.
fault. And
Sure.
yeah, and so the yeah, and so anyways, when I married for better for worse. I mean,
Mhm.
so if one thing I am is I'm loyal, to a fault probably, and so I wasn't giving up. I wasn't going anywhere. If it took years, if it stayed ugly,
Yeah.
I'm in it for
You're
the
going to
long
take it and
haul.
work through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it took several years before she could completely trust me again and stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I think it's taken you so much follow through to continue to work the program and continue to work the steps. Have you become a sponsor for anyone
Oh,
through the
yeah,
process?
tons of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I call it the butterfly. It's
Yeah.
people come in, can't make eye contact. They're disheveled. They've lost their job. I mean, nobody comes in because they're on a winning streak. Let's put it that way. Um,
Right. Yeah.
some are court ordered. Some, aren't. It doesn't matter why. I've learned I have no ability to pick who's going to make it and who doesn't. It
Mhm.
seems like the ones that are most distraught and about to die have the best chance, and maybe in the beginning, but that doesn't seem to. I just can't pick it. It's not
Yeah.
the educated, it's not the common sense. It's just some people make it and a whole bunch don't. And
Yeah.
so it's such a blessing to be a part of that and to watch um, them come in as a caterpillar and emerge as a butterfly and build relationships. I was blessed in that, Donnie and I have been married 40 years. That's so I have no experience, strength, and hope in divorce.
Right.
There's plenty of that out there. There's plenty of
Exactly.
people with experience in that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Especially if both of you were partiers and one gets well and one doesn't, that's tough. And even if not, both of you have gotten sick, the codependency and all that happens that even the person that's not the addict doesn't realize is happening and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a family disease, and it's difficult and tears people apart. But that's what the devil wants, right? He wants our life, our soul. He doesn't want us, in a relationship with God. He doesn't want us in a relationship with each other. He wants us fighting and bickering. And at the looks of social media and politics today, he's winning.
Yeah. Keeping that division. It's
Oh,
that
absolutely.
division
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
is keeping us separate and
Sure.
keeping us from
And yet
lack
we're
of.
doing it in the name of religion. And I guess they have for thousands of years, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Where are you now? Tell me about your
Yeah.
life as it is now. And obviously, faith is such a huge part for you, and your family
Sure.
is such a huge part for you. But
Yep.
a little
We
bit about where that is now for you.
When we moved to Tennessee, we started listening to Dave Ramsey on the radio and all, and decided to follow that. And so we're blessed to be debt free. We never made a lot of money, Hon. We never made a lot of money, but we lived on less than we made. And so,
Yeah.
we might have a boat, but it was a boat that needed a paint job. The seats and carpet were pulled out and we had lawn chairs in it.
Right.
Yeah. Um, we have horses, and we started with a homemade horse trailer and a van to pull it.
Yeah.
So I got a truck and a decent, safe trailer, and all. But um, we we never we stayed out of debt. We were never terrible. We probably carried one credit card and maybe had some debt after Christmas and vacation. But so we got out of debt. Eventually, got the house paid for.
Mhm.
And I thought this CrossFit thing would be cool to have a small business. And then if I retired, it'd give me something to do and all. And so we started that. And then I retired at 62.
Okay.
Dottie and I paid into Social Security our whole lives. By the time I retired, she was Medicare and Social Security age.
Yeah.
And so, between that, a little bit we take from the gym, our social securities, a little bit we draw from our IRAs. We've replaced our income. We make as much as we did to go to work. And
So,
then, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we're both healthy. And the gym's thriving now and doing well.
Mhm.
The kids are grown. They're through school. They have good jobs with benefits and stuff. Kaylee married first. Kaylee got married a guy that I loved him. He had a great sense of humor. He was short like me. He, he was full of potential. He was broken, like different break than mine, but he
Yeah.
was still damaged goods, and
Yeah.
he was full of potential. And I think I saw a lot of myself in him, and I was
Mhm.
rooting for for him. Unfortunately, that potential never manifested. You can't stay with people forever, and some of his flaws became a little exaggerated, and so that marriage didn't succeed. But Kaylee came out the other side stronger, and she does a great job now, and she's doing great. Emily eventually met her husband on a dating app of all things.
Yes.
Yeah, and the two of them, and so I got to tell you, this is kind of a funny story. So when she's telling me about him, she says, "Yeah, he's graduated from Auburn. He works at Nissan. He's an engineer. He's believes in God. He goes to church. He's bought this house that he's renovating himself to resell. And here's a picture of him in a superhero costume rappelling off a building in Nashville to raise money for the children's hospital." I'm like, he's supposed to measure up to me. This is not working out.
What is this? Yes.
So we're having a cookout, and I said, "Can Cullen come to the cookout?" She said, "No, this is his big brother weekend. He's got Jamal this weekend." And I'm like, "Of course he does." And I was like, "Emily, he's a serial killer." I was like, "Nobody is this good. We call him SK to this day. We call him." I'm like, "He's a serial killer." I'll stay on his good side because I don't know, but
yeah,
he's such a good guy. So he's given us our first granddaughter. She's 19 months old now, but they're a great little couple. He's an entrepreneur. Yeah. And, she's a gymnastics coach, and Kaylee is just this aunt that's in love and can't wait to get a pony for the baby, to get we're never going to get rid of horses.
No, those will be in your life forever. Absolutely.
Horses, but I like my daughter and wife and daughters. Let's get that correct.
Yeah. One wife.
Yeah. And they like horses, so we have horses.
Yes. Oh, Steve, I'm just.
Yeah, what a blessed life. I mean, we're healthy. We've got enough money to live off of. We don't have any debt. We got this little gym. But then you had sent out a list of trigger questions, and you asked me what was the greatest gift.
Yes.
And that is, without a question, don't even have to think about it for a second. That's my relationship with God. Something I was not looking for, wasn't interested in, and wouldn't trade all the trouble addiction was. Wouldn't trade one lick of it to give up that relationship. It's just greatest thing could have happened, and totally didn't deserve it, didn't seek it. He had to get my attention, but he got
right.
Yeah.
Right. But it wouldn't have found you if you had not have been in that addictive space.
Yeah, I had the upbringing, I had the opportunity to go willingly, but I went kicking and screaming, and but eventually I went, and I'm so thankful for that. So many don't get it. You see the deaths every day. I mean, so many kids just starting their path, and probably a lot of them aren't even truly addicts. They're just in that experimentation phase, and and it takes them out, and they don't even get the opportunity. So, I don't know why the ones that make it. It's nothing special about me. I'm just glad I was one of them, or have been to this point. I don't. They tell me that people that don't go to meetings aren't around to see what happens to those that don't go to meetings. When I was in Jacksonville, we were a CSX railroad hub. And so we would have people that would move down from Baltimore. And they would come in. I had 8 years. I had 10 years. We moved. I thought everything was well. I didn't get plugged into a meeting. And now they're divorced. They've lost their job. They've canned it all. And so when I moved up here at 5 years, the very first thing I did was found the closest meeting, was in it. And, I don't go with near the regularity that I did, but I stay plugged in. I'm still the treasurer of my home group. Got this little group of guys, and I also have other things besides that. And so I have a small group through church that we see regularly. And so I probably spend more hours a week on the church side of things now than I do the formal recovery, but it's all part of that spiritual recovery.
Yeah, it's your path. And I hear you saying the support the community, and the faith. Those are three really strong pillars, and you got to buy into them. You
Yeah.
have to buy into that to make it work. They are all there. What I have found through my walk is that they are all there for our choosing and for us to take. And God is willingly and lovingly laying it all right there for you.
I've also learned that for me, I had to act my way into right thinking. So I don't believe in this. Well, just act like you do. I mean, just go through the actions. I don't believe in God, so I'm not going to church.
Yeah.
Then you're probably never going to believe in God. Start going to church. See what happens. Maybe it doesn't, or start reading this or that. And, it's like saying, I'm not in shape, so I'm not going to work out.
Yeah.
Well, you're never going to be in shape, right? You got to go start. So I don't enjoy working out. Well, okay. But so if I start doing the thing I want to start thinking about, that's the way it happens for me, and so I can't wait to feel it or think it, and then go do it. It's the other way around, exactly opposite.
That action.
That kept me back, held back for a long time.
For sure. For sure. I actually had a group leader at one point say, you have to fake it till you make it.
Yeah. I know some people don't like saying, I mean, it's like when I started my first start in the prayer, I thought, this is silly. There's nothing out there. But I prayed because I was told to, so I did it,
You took action.
Yeah. And then lo and behold, started, other people say, well, you got brainwashed. Well, my brain needed some serious washing.
Something needed to give for you. Yeah. And you made that choice.
It's, everybody's path is a little different. Everybody's circumstances are usually very different, but what we connect on are those feelings of despair that I can't live like this anymore, whatever that looks like for you. I can't live like this. I think affluent countries probably have a higher rate of suicide than what you would call a third world country. I think if you spend your life trying to stay alive and eat, it's much more valuable to you than if everything's handed to you. And then when the first big challenge comes up, you're not equipped to handle it. You just run away. Unfortunately, it becomes a permanent solution to what's usually a temporary problem.
Right. That's a great point, Steve. That's a great point. Yeah. Man, I thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm an open book. Sometimes I maybe overshare a little too much, but
no. I think the thing that helps us all heal in whatever place we're in, no matter if you are young to right before you pass away, is this whole relatable connectedness that we have in sharing ourselves with other people in that capacity. And I will tell you that lead by example. When I first met you, I didn't know any of this. I met Steve the person.
Right.
And Steve the person that I met was a lead by example individual, and you still are. And you're walking that walk so beautifully. And I'm just so proud of you, and I'm so proud to call you friend.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I can look back and tell you, you're always leading by example, period. So I can remember one moment I hate is somebody injecting drugs for the first time that was with us, wanting to, where I was instead of me looking up to the docs and stuff I was using and trying to make them like me, it was a me, only they were looking at me, somebody that was vulnerable and wanted me to like them. And I remember when they did it, I didn't want them to. I knew this is a mistake, and so we're always an example no matter what we're doing. I just, hopefully today, more times than not, I'm setting a decent example, but
I think you
are out there all the time. Yeah.
I believe that, but I'm going to say it again. Definitely, you are a genuine individual that does walk that walk. So
I appreciate it. And if there's anybody out there hurting, whether it has anything to do with my story or anything, you don't have to stay like that, but you got to get open with it. And life can certainly get better. Can't promise you these results aren't typical of everything.
Right.
Can't promise you'll end up in the same situation I did, but I can't promise it won't be a lot better too,
Exactly. Like there's another side to addiction that being free from it offers you.
Yeah.
It's that freedom.
Oh yeah. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? Yeah.
If nothing, there you go. Steve,
Yeah.
you write a book. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
I'd like to take credit. I'm just parroting stuff I've heard throughout the years. I didn't come up with any of these.
Well, that's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a really great one. I appreciate that. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
before we go and we wrap up today, are you cool with doing some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Some just fun stuff, some lighthearted stuff. I know we got a little deep in the story, but I always like to kind of leave the conversation with some lightheartedness so people can see the other side of your personality.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
All right. So I'm going to throw these out there, and I will say my rapid fire questions tend to be not so short. They kind of be longer, but we're going to make them work.
Yeah.
All right. So question number 1 for you today, Stevie G. What is your favorite store?
I hate shopping, Dawn.
Oh, no.
The one I don't have to go into.
It's my favorite store is the one I don't have to go into. There you go.
And when I need something, I go into the store, I get it and get out as fast as I can. But I would say being a guy, it's probably Harbor Freight, Home Depot. If I had to pick one, but no, not a shopper. Don't like stores. Period.
Okay, perfect. All right. Question number 2. What is one thing you regret spending money on?
This just dates me. So I said I grew up in Orlando, and so you instantly think Disney, big city, all this stuff. When I was a kid, there was no Disney. The airport, right, Orlando International, was McCoy Air Force Base. It wasn't even a civilian airport. So Orlando was very different. I grew up in the rabbit ear. You had NBC, ABC, CBS, and maybe one NPR channel, UHF, and that was it. So it was free. And I look today and I think, why'd I have to pay all this money for TV when you have all these commercials? Why does that not pay for it? And in this day and age, why can't I just have a menu and pick the 3 channels I want? Why do I have to pay for 30 channels I'm never going to watch, 300 channels I'm never going to watch? And so I totally resent every time I pay my cable bill. Yeah, I totally resent it. And I still spend the money on it. So it's,
Same.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Check.
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of buying water. I'm that guy that'll fill that same little crinkety bottle up 8 times. Yeah.
Yes, I get that. Totally. Amen on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 3 for you. All right, here we go. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
It'd be a bunch of short stories. I could talk all day about living on less than you make, being financially like that. I could talk all day about health and like the CrossFit world, and just health in general, and how broken our healthcare system is, and or sick care, as I like to call it, care, and then and probably recovery. Those,
Okay.
It'd be an audio book. Yeah.
Oh, Steve, I think that sounds like I think that sounds like a great idea. You probably should tuck that back there and pull that out someday.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. All right, I'll be watching for it. If nothing changes, nothing changes. There's the title of your book.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
There you go. We've written it out. Now it's out there in the ethers now.
Yeah. I'm also a great procrastinator, so I'll be fixing to start that book for a long, long time. Yeah.
I'll check in with you this time next year and see if you've gotten any further down the road.
The title. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nothing has changed. Yeah.
If nothing changes, nothing changes. It's not. Nothing has changed.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Question number 4. Would you ever skydive? Or maybe I should ask, have you ever skydived?
I have skydived. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And I would do it again if it was somebody. Yeah.
How long ago did you first skydive?
Oh, this was a long time ago. I was a paramedic. At that time, they didn't have the flyable canopies. They were the military canopies. And so you spent a good bit of your day jumping off of picnic tables and stuff, learning how to fall correctly, because you didn't land standing up. I mean, it was like jumping off a car going 15, 20 miles an hour. So you were going to hit and roll. And so you had to do that. But I did it twice in one day. The people I did it with went home, and I was like, that was so much fun. I got to go again. And,
oh, wow. Okay.
So
that was the first time.
stuff like that. I haven't done it since,
Uh-huh.
um, mostly because, it takes money and time and
Mhm.
stuff. And unless somebody was going to do it, it's not something I want to go do by myself.
Sure.
But I would definitely, if somebody needed somebody to go with them, I'd go do it. Yeah.
Stevie G is volunteering, kids. Here you go.
I have as I've gotten older, I've gotten more and more afraid of heights. Now that's
Oh,
so
wow.
high that doesn't bother me like looking over the edge of a railing does. That
Yeah.
kind of thing terrifies me today. And before I used to rappel off of the side of cliffs and stuff like that. Yeah, I would
Isn't
never.
that funny?
Yeah, I would never do a bungee or rappelling or anything now today. But I jump out of a plane.
God, that's so crazy. I totally understand what you're saying too. Like if
Yeah,
we were just flying last week and I look out the window and I'm like, I'm not freaked out about that. And I feel like I probably could jump out of a plane with, I mean, my adrenaline would be up, mind you, and I'd be a little bit heightened nervous wise. But yeah, I think if you told me I had to do that off of a cliff,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's
Not
too
even-
real. Too real. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Last question and I'll let you go. This is maybe a little more introspective for you, but
Yeah.
what do you think the key to living a good life is?
For me, it's serving others, getting out of myself. It's so easy to be self-centered and everything about me and the world about me and how the world treats me.
Yeah.
And I don't have those thoughts when I'm being of service to others. And I sleep good at night. I feel like you know, whatever it is. And serving others can be individual, can be a group. I've done so many volunteer things that were totally fun, didn't take much energy, but like I was for 25 years, I was the PA announcer of football and basketball at Wilson Central. Um,
Okay.
it was started with my kids there. They graduated and I didn't, but it
Okay.
was free. Sometimes I get a hamburger out of it, but usually it was free and or cold piece of pizza. Um,
Okay.
but it was service and it did something. Been on a couple of board of directors, done some different things here and there. Like I say, I'm the treasurer of my saddle club. Of the 12-step program, I've been the treasurer, the president of the saddle club. And just, I've been 10% of the people do 90% of the work.
Yeah.
Somehow I became one of those people. Well, I
Yeah.
certainly wasn't the way I grew up.
Yeah.
But I was blessed with a job that let me go to my kids' activities. So every gymnastics meet, my other daughter was a cheerleader. I was able to go to all of that, and so consequently, here's a generation that thinks that's what you do, and so
Yeah.
they'll do that with their kids and stuff, and all as well. And plus, it just makes the time go by. As a gymnastics dad, I announced a lot of the gym meets. I'd get there and
Oh,
help set
yes.
up, tear down, and stuff. Because otherwise, you're just standing around.
You're sitting there waiting a lot. Yeah. I
But
remember the days.
some of those service things, um, service doesn't have to be a chore, I guess, or it doesn't have to be anything negative. I mean, like, it can be enjoyable,
Right.
but it's still service, So I think
Totally.
that, and then you also run into people with stories and realize you don't have it so bad, even when things are bad. And I'm a kind of person that focuses on the positive.
Mhm.
Um, if I were to go back over the years, I have plenty of, you know, sad stories and tough stories and injuries and surgeries and sick kids and different things that have happened, but they
Mhm.
don't become the focus for me. I mean, some people do kind of live a victim life,
Right.
and I feel for them because that's probably not a choice. Just like the positive side of seeing things is just the way I'm wired.
Mhm.
So I can't relate to that person. I can be sympathetic or empathetic to that person that lives on the depressive side of things. That's not me. I always feel like things are going to work out and be okay. And it's not a conscious decision. It's just the way I'm wired.
Yeah, but I also think too, part of your process has maybe helped lead you more in that definitive way because of the gift of
Yeah.
healing that you've received.
When you look at being a paramedic, being a nurse, being in the military,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
dealt with a lot of life and death situations,
Yeah.
not mine, thank goodness.
Right.
But I dealt with a lot of life and death. So the things that get people really upset these days, like their large fry didn't come full, and so
Yeah.
they have a meltdown in the line at McDonald's or something. Those
Yeah.
kind of things they don't even register with me. If I go outside and I need to be somewhere and the tire's flat, I can jump up and down, scream and punch a hole in the side of the car. Tire's still flat. It's got to be changed, right? So
Right.
those kind of things, I don't know if that's why, but those kind of things rarely ever get under my skin. If they do, it's something else. I haven't been sleeping. I'm sick. Something like that's when things get under my skin. Is when something's physically out of balance.
Well, it's perspective. I think it's that kind of lifestyle and that kind of workload that you were under and that you were that happened with you. It gave you the gift of perspective.
Yeah, and that you can think so much clearer and handle the situation calm. You can melt down later if it feels necessary, but if you melt down, you no longer can be a solution in the problem, right?
Amen.
You got your head and your wits about you. And so, yeah, I think, and again, I think that's kind of a gift. I was always calm. It was always somebody else having a heart attack or been shot or something. It wasn't me. There was no reason to yell and run and get my heart rate way up. We were the cavalry. We know what to do. It works or it doesn't. But
but you were the one that had to take care of it. So that's that makes total sense for sure. Man, Steve, this has been such a delightful time. Thank you.
I enjoyed it. And it was just so good reconnecting with you. I've missed you. Yeah.
Yes, I missed you guys too. Oh my goodness. I'm definitely going to make a time to come out and hang at Restart.
Bring the kids. You guys come out. It's third Saturday of every month at 10 o'clock. Third Saturday every month, that is. Yep.
Third Saturday of every month, 10 a.m. It's called Faith RX, and this is out of 3-Star CrossFit, and this is in Lebanon, if they want to look that up. Yeah. Lebanon, Tennessee. Yeah. You will not regret sitting in on one of those programs. The Faith RX as a whole is really, really brilliant. If you are interested in really diving in and being supported by a community that really can show you genuine love and care in a very short period of time.
Yeah. And it's free.
And it's free. We like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Steve, hey, tell everybody I said hello, your family, and give your sweet little granddaughter a big old squeeze. I haven't met her yet, but she's just, oh my goodness. The pictures I see of her are just, delightful.
She's a cartoon character. It's amazing.
Love it. Love it. Well, I have enjoyed this afternoon. And let's not wait so long till we talk together again.
Sounds good, Don. All right. Appreciate it.
We'll hit a workout up sometime, like the good old days from pulling rowers out of the back closet.
I don't know if I can keep up with you, but I'll try.
I don't know that I can keep up with you.
We'll see.
Steve, have a great rest of your day, okay?
All right. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
man. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you have an idea for an interview or you would like to share your own story, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message at dawn@thesoulgoals.com. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love for you to leave a review and to consider following and subscribing to the show. With weekly releases, there is always another interesting story to be heard. I do hope that today's guests and their words have helped to bring some extra light to your day and encouraged you to find a deeper space of your very own soul goals. Until next time, friends, remember that everyone has a story and every story matters.